Man, did I spend time, energy, money watching that fight last night? Jeez.
You're tuned into the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Tolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
So, how about that? Chris actually opening up the show. He found us live here in the first round, St. Jude Studios, every single Wednesday and Sunday. You're in the first round, the show that helps you be smarter than your friends when it comes to sports. I thought that was interesting. We do something a little bit different. And I actually felt that was really cool because, one of these days, Chris, you're going to host the whole show. You're going to put all the show together. You're going to pick out all the videos, pick out all the pictures, and I'm just going to sit over here with a Mai Tai or a Long Island and just answer all your questions. And then you're going to see what it's like to sit in the hot seat, man. You got a little taste of it tonight.
Yeah, just a little taste, man. But, jeez, I was so disappointed last night.
Israel Adesanya and, Yoel Romero fight.
Yeah, man, I was so disappointed.
I can't believe that fight turned out the way that it did. That was so disappointing. And actually, the best fight of the night was Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Zhang Weili. I thought that was possibly the fight of the year so far.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was sitting here looking at that Israel Adesanya fight and Yoel Romero. It reminded me when we were kids when you get ready to fight somebody, the baddest person hit my hand, and you have to hit the other person to get them to fight you. I'm like, what are you doing?
Everybody was backing up. There was hardly any action at all. And I don't know. When you listen to the post-fight presser with Dana White, he even said, we blew it. We made a mistake scheduling these two guys to fight. It was slow. It was odd. The beginning of the fight, Yoel Romero standing there with his hands over his face for some reason. There was a lot of inactivity. 88 significant strikes in this fight. Why is that an important number, Chris? 88 significant strikes.
Because it's probably the lowest number of strikes ever in a fight.
It is. It's the lowest number of significant strikes in a title fight since 2010 when Anderson Silva took on Damian Maia.
Oh, wow.
And that only had 71 significant strikes. I mean, it was like they were both acting like they had the coronavirus and didn't want to touch. It was like tag.
I know. It's like you were trying to fill each other out. Like, okay, I can see the first round. You're trying to fill each other out to see, what the other person is going to do, and just kind of get that feel. But it's the second round, third round, I'm like, oh, come on, fellas, you got to give me something.
Dan Murgliata, the head referee last night for that fight, at the beginning of the fourth round, had to come over to both the fighters, called them there, and said, "Hey, you guys got to pick up the action and start making something happen. Otherwise." I don't know what the implications are going to be, but the inactivity in that fight I thought was terrible. To have the referee have to come over in the fourth round and take charge of the fight and say, hey, you guys are being so lame, you're being so timid, you're being so inactive. And when you think about how much, guys are paying for these fights, it's like 50 or 60, 70 bucks sometimes. I mean, what are these guys thinking?
I don't know what they were thinking last night. I'm just like, okay, so you go out, you spend all this money. In my case, you go out, you get food, you get beer.
In a bar that's jam-packed full.
Right, jam-packed full of people. Right. And you're sitting here, you're trying to enjoy this fight, and everybody's sitting in there like, boo. I mean, you had people booing inside the actual bar watching the fight.
Oh, they were booing inside of the T-Mobile Garden in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They were booing because of the inactivity. Let's go from this fight, which was so absolutely underwhelming, to a fight that I also was looking forward to. Well, before we get going on the Joanna Jędrzejczyk Zhang Weili fight, I wanted to say one thing. I thought I picked Yoel Romero I said if Adesanya wins the fight, it's going to be on points. He didn't have enough power. And what did I say? It's going to start with him chopping down that tree with all those leg kicks.
Right.
And he talked about that after the fight, how, he goes, hey, I bleeped up his knee pretty bad. And that's exactly how it ended up turning out. What didn't happen was I can't believe Yoel Romero came out there with the mindset that he did that I can't even put a finger on, because my thinking was one shot from him. We saw him take a punch. He hit Israel in the first round with a laser right on the button, and Israel Adesanya ate the whole thing. He didn't get wobbly or anything. It backed him up 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah.
But he couldn't catch him throughout the whole fight with the one shot that I thought could be the money shot for him. It never came. And I think it was due to inactivity, and something was going on in his head that I can't explain, because the inactivity was disgusting.
And it really was. And, a lot of it comes with Israel Adesanya having the reach advantage on him. But when Yoel Romero, when he caught him with that punch in the first round, to me, that was a sign that, okay,
he came to fight.
He came to fight.
Right.
Yeah, but he stunned him with that punch, though. Even though he went back 4 or 5 feet, he stunned him. And I was like, okay, so that you can stun him, you can daze him, attack him, and just get it on.
And it didn't happen.
It didn't happen at all. And
what was going on in Yoel Romero's head?
I don't know myself. I was like, yo, are you gonna attack the guy? You got him with a good punch. He caught him with a couple of counter punches too. And I'm like, what are you doing? Attack.
And then he sat back.
And he just sat back and.
Where's the UFC fans tonight? Get in and join us on Super Chat. You can also get your comments and questions in at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com. We'll answer those as we do every week on the air. Now, we had put a pin in this, and I really want to get to the Zhang Weili, Joanna Jędrzejczyk strawweight fight. 5 rounds of absolute antithesis of the headlining match. This was the headlining match, the two girls going after it, and we knew it was going to be a great match. The only concern I had was, what Joanna Jędrzejczyk were we going to get? Because she's coming into this fight, lost 3 out of her last 5, hasn't looked like the dominant Joanna that we know. And I think Rose had a lot to do with it. The 2 fights that she had with Rose, I think, took some wind out of her sails. She was ready to roll last night, and we got every single nickel of that we spent in that fight yesterday. Both of them, it was just like Rock'em Sock'em Robots on cocaine for 25 minutes. I thought that they both did a great job. I thought it was a close fight. And I think that the way it came down with a split decision win for Weili was the correct decision. How did you see it, though, Chris?
I mean, I saw it the same way. I mean, the complete opposite of the fight before. This fight had over 670 strikes, significant strikes in this match. So this match was Rock'em Sock'em Robots from beginning to end.
Yeah, both of them were from every round, from the minute the bell rang, it wasn't tap gloves or anything. It was just right to the center of the ring, and it was like 2 dogs fighting over a piece of meat. Neither of them had eaten in about a month, and it was great. And how about both of them being able to take a shot? We just saw a minute ago here on the highlights when Weili goes for the strike with the leg low, and Joanna gets her right in the chin with the foot, and she ate the whole thing.
Yes.
And then there's the other shot where Zhang comes in, and Joanna misses and gets her over her left shoulder with a jab, and Weili connects right on her forehead. At the end of that fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk had a pair of cantaloupes in her forehead, and she actually had a hematoma.
Yeah,
hematoma, which is a massive blood clotting in her forehead. I mean, she looked like a Klingon. She looked like something that would have been on Star Trek: The New Generation. Not that I've ever watched that, because I could get my man card taken away just for admitting something like that. No offense to all the Star Trek fans out there, but this is what you want. This is what we expect from UFC, and in a title fight of 5 rounds, this is exactly what we want to see.
Yes, we did. I mean, in that fight, you saw some of everything. You saw Joanna actually block the takedowns of Zhang, and that was very interesting because Zhang she's one of those fighters that can take you down and get you down with a submission. But it was amazing to see how Joanna was actually able to just block some of those submissions, catching her with the knees to the body, and just strikes to the body as well to break up some of those takedown attempts.
Yeah, and if you are wondering and you didn't see the fight, how much action there was in this fight. One, Chris and I can't underestimate it or underwhelm it. Both of these ladies skipped the post-fight presser at the arena at T-Mobile, and both went directly to the hospital and spent the night there and were released this morning. Both their faces look like hamburger meat.
Yeah.
I thought the result was right. A split decision for Wheelie, who I think proved herself. Once again, she's 21-1. I think she's the new dominant person for women at not only at strawweight, but on the women's side of the fence in UFC. I think she's quick, smart, doesn't talk a lot of junk, lets her fists do the talking, and I was impressed last night.
Yeah, I was highly impressed. I mean, she didn't back down one bit. I mean, she kept pressing forward, which is very, very, interesting, and especially when it comes down to women. When you look at, women fighters that do that, you think of like a Amanda Nunes or someone like that who continues to press forward. But, Zhang Weili, she proved her mettle last night by, taking out Jojic last night.
So let's talk pound for pound real quick. If we're going men or women, I think Wheelie has to be up there in the top 5. I've got to put Amanda Nunes up there in the top 5. And then on the men's side, did you see the no, let's just stick with pound to pound. On the men's side, pound to pound, I've got Khabib number 1. I would put Israel up there, but last night the inactivity he can't be pound for pound. I would say Khabib is number 1, and then I would put Amanda Nunes number 2, and then there's probably 8 or 9 fighters on the male or female side that I could put at 3. Who do you got in your top 3 pound for pound in the UFC right now? Is Khabib number 1?
Of course, Khabib is number 1.
Right.
I have Amanda Nunes number 2, and you can throw Zhang Weili there. You can throw you can throw, of course, John Jones in there. You can throw
Kamaru Usman. Is it too early to put him up there?
I think it's too early to put him in there. But,
Jorge Masvidal. You know who we're not talking about? We're not mentioning Conor pound for pound.
No.
It's because the cardio, right?
Right, the cardio.
Yeah, he doesn't have the guts to go. I don't think he has the horses to go the whole way. And Danny came out last night and said, he's got to go through Justin Gaethje before he gets that Khabib fight.
Right.
And that is exactly what we've been talking about for months now. I think that's the fight that's going to happen.
Yes.
And I don't even know after that if he you know what? If it had to be right now and I'm betting my house, my money, or my salvation on any of this, I'm taking Conor to lose that fight because that was an unimpressive win for me. And even though it was a 46-second knockout of Cowboy Cerrone. Again, we've talked about this. That was his 50th fight in the UFC, and Cowboy's best years are in the rearview mirror. That wasn't one of the upper echelon guys. And at the press conference for Khabib Ferguson, Khabib mentioned that. He goes, look, who has he been fighting? He's not fighting the top guys.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to ding his reputation, heritage, and how we look at Conor right now because he's not lining up. He just wants to get back and get that revenge fight against Nurmagomedov. And I think he's got to prove himself, whether that's through Usman, Colby Covington, Justin Gaethje, Jorge Masvidal. It's got to be. He's got to show me that he deserves to get in that fight. Otherwise, I have no interest in that fight.
I mean, nobody really wants interest in a fight like that when you basically giving somebody a shot when they really didn't earn it. When you have fighters that are out here fighting, the best of the best, and you have somebody like Conor that comes in and thinks just because he's a brand name he can skip the line. No, it doesn't work that way. 7
of the top 10 money-making UFC fights have involved Conor. That's what it is. Yeah. He knows how to do this. He's got a good left hand. He pulls in the gate, raises up the numbers, and that's what it is. It's not the talent that he's going after. I thought even when he fought Jose Aldo that Jose was starting to go down the other side of the mountain. He wasn't on the peak anymore. Anyway, we're going to put a pin in that one. That was an interesting UFC fight. We had 2 bipolar fights, one that basically wasn't even a fight, and then the women that really held up the banner all night for UFC 248. I'm looking forward to the Tony Ferguson-Khabib fight. That's the next big one on the map for me. Moving on to NFL news. Dallas Cowboys offered Dak 3 years at $105 million, so basically about $33.5 million a year. And all indications are that he's going to turn this down. Then they're going to franchise tag him. He's going to get the average of the top 5 salaries at quarterback in the NFL. I mean, how do you turn it down $105 million when you've won 1 playoff game in your career?
Well, this is Dallas. This is Dak Prescott. And he's also looking at the contracts of some of the other quarterbacks who just recently signed contracts.
Yeah, this is less than Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
less.
Yeah, it's less than Carson Wentz. But look, you have Like you have Russell Wilson just signed one for I think 104 or 104, 105. He's getting paid like $35 million a season. You have, so basically, if from a standpoint of signing contracts, he's basically trying to wait to see what happens with
Tom Brady.
No, your guy from Kansas City.
Patrick Mahomes. Oh,
see
yeah.
what happens with that contract. So basically, right now, that's what he's doing, playing the waiting game.
Yeah, they're going to back the vault up on him. I think he's going to get a 4 or 5 year deal, upwards of $150 million. And that is the nature of where we're at in the NFL now with free agency. Everybody knows when was the last time that a Super Bowl champion won without having a dominant quarterback? Because I'm thinking we've got to go back to maybe Tampa Bay with Trent Dilfer.
Tampa Bay or Baltimore Ravens with
Joe Flacco.
With Baltimore Ravens with oh my goodness.
Because Joe Flacco wasn't. I don't think of him as a dominant.
He wasn't dominant, but he
top
was better
10
than when Baltimore won their first championship. I can't think of the guy's name.
Pass.
Yeah, pass him. But he was bad, though. I mean, he had a guy who basically couldn't throw the ball 2 yards down the field. I mean, basically they had a run game and a defense.
Yeah, so I don't know what the end game here for Dak Prescott is because he doesn't have any leverage.
Johnson. That's it, Brad Johnson.
Okay, so but Dak Prescott, he doesn't have any leverage here. What's he going to do, sit out? That's fine. We'll just go pick up Teddy Bridgewater.
Right.
They don't even need to pick up Teddy Bridgewater. They can just franchise tag him, and then he's got to play.
Well, I mean, eventually I think that's going to be the route if he doesn't sign this contract. But I mean, you need to go ahead and sign this contract, get it out the way because you need to find a way because you got to find a way to get Amari back in there.
Well, they're about 105. They've got about $105 million. Dallas does to play with around the cap, and I don't know. I mean, okay, so you bring back Dak and you bring back Amari. Jason Witten's a year older. And a little less tread is on the tire with Ezekiel. You have the exact same team, except you have a new head coach. What are you expecting that's going to be different?
I mean, you can go ahead and I would go ahead and part ways with Jason Witten anyway. I mean,
okay, so if I'm a Dallas fan, how is this next season in 2020 going to be better than last season? I'm bringing in the same cast of characters.
I mean, you got a different head coach who
that's the answer, Mike McCarthy.
That has a pedigree of actually winning playoff games. You have Jason Garrett before who just,
so I'm just saying that's the answer is the head coach.
The answer, yes.
I don't think that's a big enough answer to give me hope as a Dallas Cowboy fan, which I'm not, to get me to the Super Bowl. I mean, that was an absolute team collapse that you can't throw it all on Jason Garrett, even though I thought he should have been gone at the beginning of the season, and he wasn't.
Well, Jason Garrett should have been gone like 3 or 4 seasons
right.
ago. But
you're right. They're committed to mediocrity in Dallas, and it's a carnival the way Jerry Jones runs his organization. I just don't know if bringing back all the same characters is the answer. I think that you need to go out there and make a splash and get somebody else to replace Lee at linebacker or bring in another wide receiver. Basically, you got you got Amari Cooper, who's a top line guy at wide receiver that's not signed, and then you got a bunch of journeymen. I think you got to make a splash. I don't think Mike McCarthy takes you from losing your last 5 games, not even winning your division, not making the playoffs, and 1 playoff victory in the past 5 years, no NFL championships in the last 25 years, to Super Bowl champion just because Mike McCarthy comes in.
Well, I mean, you got to think too. I mean, they're playing in a division that's really not necessarily the toughest. It's bipolar. I mean, because you don't know what Philly's going to be day in and day out. You have New York that's still rebuilding. You have let's say you got Washington that's still rebuilding or trying to get something together.
Oh, as long as Daniel Snyder's there, they're not going to be rebuilding anything.
Exactly. So I mean, so you're looking at that division. I mean, yeah, they have a shot to get to the playoffs, and then I mean, from there, really, Dallas doesn't really have a bad offensive situation. I mean, defensively, they're going to have some holes to fill, but offensively, I mean, I think they have a good enough core that's good enough to get them far in the playoffs.
We'll see. Like I said, Mike McCarthy to me isn't a big enough splash to justify them making the Super Bowl. We'll see how it pans out. I think, they're an 8 or 9 win team this next season because I think Philly comes back healthy. And as hard as it is to believe, I think Washington will be better than they were last year. And who knows what the Giants are going to offer. Moving on to the Saints. They're going to use a first-round restricted free agent tender on quarterback Taysom Hill, who I really like. He's a dual-threat guy. Doesn't mean he has the biggest arm in the NFL, and he's going to scare any defenses, but I just like him. He's an overall tough player. He's what Tommy Lasorda used to call a 5-tool player. You can put him anywhere on the field and play. They've pretty much succumbed to the fact that Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to lose him in free agency, and we knew that as soon as a couple weeks ago Drew Brees came out and said, I'm coming back this year. I think this is a good move for them because this shores up a backup quarterback that's going to bring he's competent, tough, not going to cause problems on or off the field, and he's going to throw a wrinkle in there when you need him to, whether Brees is healthy or not. If Brees for some reason goes down, now you got to be ready for a completely different quarterback than Drew Brees, one that's mobile, tough. They can line him up at wide receiver. They can line him up at tight end, for crying out loud. They'd line him up in the backfield blocking.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that he's able to do all of those things, but the Saints losing Teddy Bridgewater that's going to be a big blow. I mean, we know what Taysom Hill can do from an athletic standpoint, but playing quarterback, especially in Sean Payton's offense, you have to have that cerebral mind to go with it. And you see from when Teddy Bridgewater took over, he had that cerebral mindset. I mean, the fact that he won 6 straight games with that offense, I mean, Sean Payton's offense coming in the second string, that was awesome last season.
Yeah, and I think he built himself up a lot of equity around GMs in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater coming into free agency, and I think he's going to get a big contract. How about him going to Tampa Bay? That could be one move. I think a lot of what is going to determine where most of these free agents go and land and start talking is going to be intertwined with the draft and where these teams are building with the draft. Let's get into the draft real quick. We've got Cincinnati 1. We both can see Joe Burrow is going number 1 to Cincinnati, and he'll be condemned there for the next 15 years. Washington's going to take Chase Young out of Ohio State. That's my pick. And then Detroit. Why is all the talk out there that Detroit is going to move down and threaten to take Tua Tagovailoa when they have Matthew Stafford there, who I'm not impressed with? I mean, 95% of his stats come in junk time when they're already getting blown out. But I don't think he's ever going to take them to a Super Bowl, which is my qualifier if I'm a GM. I don't want to bring somebody in at quarterback that I don't think can get me to a Super Bowl. Now, whether they've brought in enough talent to help him around there in Detroit is a whole nother discussion. But I think this whole thing about them trading out of that position and threatening to take Tua is all posturing. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. And I've said 9 million times on this show, the biggest month that anyone lies in on this whole planet is NFL GMs, scouts, and team officials in March. They're throwing out everything against the wall and see what'll stick to make their position a little more advantageous. I think they're going to go take Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker at Clemson, who's an absolute wrecking ball, at 3. And then the Giants at 4, I think they're going to take Jeff Okunda, the cornerback out of Ohio State, who's an absolute flyer, lockdown guy. I think he's got Darrelle Revis pasted all over him. And then at 5, I think Tua will be there at 5. That's my prediction. And Miami absolutely takes him, and he doesn't slip past 5.
Yeah, well, if I'm Detroit, and if it was me, I would make that trade to trade out of that spot, simply to fill in some of those holes that they need. I mean, one of the main holes they need is they do need help with receiver. They have a decent tight end there with Stafford, but I would make the trade back to get a receiver. We have Bo Scarborough there. He went out with a knee injury, so you don't know how he's going to come back from that injury. I mean, so you're definitely going to need running backs. And I mean, it's just so many holes that that needs to be filled there. But I would actually look to make that trade because there's so many holes that need to be filled.
If you're Detroit,
if I'm Detroit, yes.
But if you're Miami, I'm not buying this. You guys are going to trade out of that position because you want to pick up Tua. Are you? I'm not buying that.
I'm not buying it because I mean, Matthew, regardless of how we feel about Matthew Stafford, he's still a serviceable quarterback, and so I just think that they need to just get him. Again, some more weapons, get him a decent running back, and help out on that offensive line to help out with that running game so that all the pressure's not on Matt Stafford.
Yeah, if it's me and I'm Miami at 5, I am absolutely bolted to the center of the earth. I am not trading down. I want to get my quarterback because what have you got? You got Fitzmagic for another couple years, who isn't going to get you anywhere. But you bring in Tua now. You let Fitzmagic do what he's going to do. You have no hope of making the playoffs next year. And at the end of the season, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, Miami started turning the corner and actually playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season. You look at the beginning of the season, they were getting blown out at home by New England, and by the end of the season, Flores kind of had some momentum building where they go up to Gillette and actually get a win that the New England Patriots had to have to ensure a first-round bye. So I think he's got them turning the corner. I think they're nailed down at 5. You take the quarterback of the future, and how many times have we've seen NFL teams take that quarterback that they want for the future of their franchise and let him sit for 1 year and then come in and they turn out to be awesome. And the first one I'm thinking of is Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
That's the formula.
That's the formula. But if I'm Miami, I'm not stuck on Tua.
Really?
No, I'm not.
You're trading out?
No, I'm staying in that spot. If Justin Herbert's there, I'm taking Herbert.
Over Tua?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Because at the end of the day, Tua is injury prone. We know that he has
he's had injuries.
Problem. He has a hip problem.
Right.
And he has ankle problems.
Right.
In the league, those are some of the main tools of a quarterback that you have to have, that you don't want to have those problems there. You don't have those problems with Justin Herbert, who gives you just as good accuracy, doesn't turn the ball over, is just as mobile,
and played in what conference?
And he's a taller quarterback.
Tall doesn't mean anything. Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes aren't tall guys.
No, but
so let's just drop the tall.
But with that, he has those measurables to play in.
Okay, let me just ask you a couple questions. We're just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
He played in the Pac-10, which is a down conference. Tua did it for multiple years in the toughest conference over the past 10 years, which is the SEC. I think he has super high intelligence QB-wise. Yep. He's also, I think, more mobile than Justin Herbert. Herbert might have a bigger arm, but we've seen Tua air it out dozens of times. I think the intelligence factor and his overall record in the SEC, I think that speaks a little bit louder than what Justin Herbert did in a Pac-12 that you have to admit over the past 4 years has been down. When was the last time a Pac-12 team even played for the national championship? We got to go back to what? Auburn against Oregon?
Well, I mean, yeah,
8 or 9 years ago.
I mean, you can go back and.
Well, how much do you value that he's playing in a lesser conference? I mean, Justin Herbert.
I don't place value in that simply because of what Philly did with the quarterback they drafted from Buffalo, not Buffalo, but from South Dakota State.
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz, right? So I mean, you can't necessarily say, well, this conference is better than this conference, and so I'm gonna take this guy. If I feel
that's just one factor.
But that's just a factor.
That's just one factor.
That's one factor. But
right.
if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at a quarterback who, to this day, we know he hasn't had any injury problems.
Right.
We're looking at a quarterback who's just as good as far as touchdown to interception ratio. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the fact that to me right now, you still don't know how healthy Tua is. So I'm not.
Yeah, but I don't care in the first year. I don't care how healthy he is in the first year, because the first year he's going to sit and learn.
He can
sit and learn.
But right, we have to understand though. This is the NFL. Anything can happen. So anything can happen. Like, say for instance, something does happen to Fitzmagic.
Next year's a wash.
And so
if I'm anybody in Miami right now in that organization, I don't care what we win. I don't care. There's no way we're making the playoffs. Nobody has that idea in their head. So it doesn't matter if Fitzpatrick gets hurt. It's just going to be experience for him. We're going to give him a generic playbook, speaking of Tua, if he's there. And I have no expectations of him. None. I just go in there, get some experience, and then in year 2, just like Garoppolo under Brady, Garoppolo goes to the Super Bowl. And then we've got Patrick Mahomes under Smith, and then Mahomes wins the Super Bowl. And I could even go back to Rodgers under Brett Favre, and what happened? He sat for a year, 2 years, goes and wins the Super Bowl. That's the formula that I want to use. So I have no expectations on Tua. Let's say that you're saying, well, what if Fitzpatrick gets hurt? Okay, that's fine. We'll just throw him in there with a generic book. We don't have any expectations, no pressure. Get some experience. Start reading NFL defenses. Get up to speed on NFL speed, and no problem.
Yeah,
we'll get you ready for next year.
Yeah, Herbert's my pick if I'm Miami, though. That's just me.
Wow, do you see that happening?
Do I see it happening? Probably not, because Miami has been locked on Tua from day one. But if it was me as a GM, just from looking at all of those things. I mean, especially a fresh hip injury. I mean, when you look at hip injuries, it reminds me of what happened to Bo Jackson. Yeah, it never healed correctly, and Bo was never able to play the game again. And so when I look at Tua, go back and compare that with Bo. I will go with Herbert because it's a safer pick for me.
Good point. Well made. We'll see. The draft is coming up in April. There'll be a lot of lies out there. We got to sort through them. And then the actual greatest thing is the draft is in Las Vegas, one of my favorite cities. I think this is going to be the best draft ever just because of the environment in Las Vegas. The NFL is planting a team there. It's a super exciting city. And there are so many questions around this draft where the top 5 and even top 10 are going to go. Plus, everything with Brady out there in the balance, I think it's going to be an awesome draft. We want to stop and take a moment to thank all of you who are our new subscribers. Thank you for being a part of our show here every Wednesday and Sunday in the St. Jude studios. Ron Dahlbeck and Chris Roberts joining you, talking about everything in the world of sports. You can be a part of the show. Get a hold of us here at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at thefirstraund1. And, I've kind of been lagging off on Twitter lately.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much political stuff in this, little environment that I got thrown into that, it's just like even people that have channels on Twitter that are sports-centric, they're even talking about political stuff. And it's like, I so don't want to talk about that.
Man, of course nobody wants to talk about that. But let's talk about golf while we at it.
Golf,
let's
okay.
go to golf.
We can switch gears and talk golf. Let's talk about it.
Let's go into golf. I mean, was it foreshadowing that the PGA decided to go ahead and nominate Tiger Woods for the Hall of Fame already?
Foreshadowing, you mean by like they're putting they're putting the sign up on the wall that we're done for business with Tiger?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't foreshadowing because now you're starting to see Tiger Woods starting to pull out of some of these major tournaments with back injuries or
right. We talked about this before the show. I don't think that back ever healed, and I don't think he ever completely got over the whole thing with his wife and that whole scandal. I think that's majorly affected him. He was on a meteoric, skyrocketing trajectory before that happened, and then I think that jacked him up mentally, big time, and he's never been the same. And you can, guys like my dad and other fans that love Tiger, and I don't hate Tiger, they're going to say, well, what about a year and a half ago when he won at Augusta? And it's okay, but that's a snapshot. That's not streaming video of what you get with Tiger now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you get Tiger. Tiger gets the occasional win. I mean, occasionally he's in the top 10. Two or three times a year. Yeah, 2 or 3 times he's in the top 10, but that's about it.
Right. I think the best years are in the rearview mirror. Now, we were talking about, do we put him on the Mount Rushmore? I put him up there, yeah. But then you've got to put up Sam Snead, who has just as many tournament victories. You got to put up Ben Hogan, who was basically the grandfather of this whole thing.
Right.
And then you got to put up Jack Nicklaus, because Jack Nicklaus actually still has more majors than Tiger. And then right in there, if you could put a fifth head, I would put Arnold there.
Yeah.
So I'd have Arnold, Tiger, Sam Snead, and Ben Hogan, and Jack Nicklaus. Those are the 5 that I'd have up there. Now, can we talk about Tiger being number 1? I don't think so.
No, I can't. I'm
not at number 1.
Not at number 1. I mean,
not
maybe
number 1.
Had he gotten to 18, that would have been the argument. There could have been an argument there. I mean, or had he gotten to 19, we could have had a fair argument. But at number 1, no, we can't put him up there.
No, absolutely can't put him up there. And I think he's one of the greats of all time. I put him in my top 5.
Right.
So where did the golf thing come from, man? You just came out of left with the golf.
Man, I was just sitting here. I was actually reading an article about the PGA actually nominated Tiger Woods for the Hall of Fame. And so I was actually looking at what their nomination criteria was. And so this is interesting, especially when we talk about the good versus the great getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so the PGA, their criteria is you have to have won 2 majors and 15 tournaments on the PGA. 15.
And 2 majors. That sounds like the Hall of Very Good to me.
To me, it does too. I mean,
the Hall of Very Good, and that's the problem I have with baseball. It's become the Hall of Very Good.
Right.
Be the dominant player in your sport or in your position in your era.
Right.
That's the qualification I have. Now, Tiger has got to be in the Hall of Fame. No doubt about it. He was absolutely the most dominant guy. Saved the PGA in a lot of ways financially. You can look at the TV ratings. You can look at how much other guys are getting paid. You can look at the level of sponsorship money that started pouring into the PGA after he started winning. The diversity factor. Right. I mean, how many more African-American amateurs are out there now? And we could even go into women's tennis. Right. And we talk about Gigi and golf and the young talent that is coming up on the minority side of things. Right. And they talk about how they were inspired by not only Serena, but by Tiger. Right. So I think he's absolutely in the top 5 golfers of all time. I just can't put him in that number 1 slot.
Yeah, Tiger's going to be number 1 simply for his stats. I mean, you have to think this guy has 15 majors. Mm-hmm. He has, 82 right. on the PGA wins. Right. He has over 40 European wins. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, he has wins in the Australian tournaments and as well as Japan tournaments. So I mean, Tiger is there. He's solidified his.
During his career, who else was dominant on his level? You could say Phil was close.
He was close, yes.
Then at the end of Tiger, you have Rory McIlroy and you have some other guys that are coming up now. Right. But I didn't think anybody in his era when he was on top was as close. No, nobody was close to him.
Not as
in his era.
Not as dominant. You know, I don't.
Over a long period of time.
Possibly. I can't think. I'm not. Let's not even bring him up. I forgot his name. The guy who died in
Payne Stewart.
Was it Payne Stewart who died in the airplane?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, Payne Stewart with the knickers, and that was very unfortunate. He went in a airplane crash over Nebraska about 13 years ago. Yeah. Moving on to men's hoops right now, San Diego State takes a hard last 3-point bucket from Utah State to lose the Mountain West Championship. Utah State punches their ticket to the tournament. Before I go any farther, we were talking about the tournament, getting ready for it. Who's our sleeper? Who do we have in our top 5 right now teams? And who are our number 1 seeds? Right now, my number 1 seeds are Kansas, Gonzaga, Dayton, and I'm putting San Diego State over Baylor. I'm putting San Diego State over Baylor, and I'm going to tell you why. Because of consistency. Baylor in the last month has been so inconsistent. I saw them playing TCU, and it was the most hapless. It reminded me of a blind man playing pool with a rope. Yeah. It was terrible. Yeah. And they should be rising right now. Kansas gets a big win today against at the right time against Texas Tech, which is a tough team. They were in the finals last year. Right. So I think I look for teams that are peaking at the right time. Now, anything can happen. Anything can happen. I know that. But Kansas, for me, has got to be number 1. Bill Self, I think, has done an amazing job there. They're peaking at the right time. They clinched the regular season championship for the Big 12 for the 15th time in 16 years. Now, just say that to yourself slowly. The 15th championship in 16 years. That is dominance. Yeah, it is. And in that division,
it really is.
That's saying something to me.
It really is. But, man, did you see that shot, though?
Yeah. 3 or 4 feet behind the line.
I mean, it's like he crossed him over and he was just like, oh, yeah, take this while you're at it.
You're talking about Utah State?
Yeah. I'm like, wow.
All right, so who you guys, your seeds, and then give me your top 5 or your top 7 teams in the country. But your number 1 seeds first.
I mean, your number 1 seeds. I agree with you as far as the number 1 seeds. I mean,
so you got Kansas, Gonzaga,
okay, San Diego State, and
Dayton,
yeah.
Okay, so you got San Diego State up there too. Yeah. All right, and then after that, I've got Baylor in the next 3. I've got Baylor, Kentucky, and then it's close between Florida State. I'll just leave it there. I'll go with Baylor, Kentucky, and Florida State in my next 3. So there's my top 8.
Can't beat that. Let's see. Yeah, Baylor, Kentucky, Florida State. I mean, especially after what Kentucky did to Florida yesterday. Jeez.
A 1-point win.
and Florida had it. They were down by 17 points.
Florida had it.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
You know, that loss yesterday for the Gators, it's going to turn up the heat in the oven on Mike White. This has been a lackluster year. In a year where they had a transfer player that was preseason, we talked a couple months ago. I did my research. How many guys pre-picked the Gators to finish in the Final Four?
Yeah.
The Final Four.
This
is so underwhelming. I can't even put my Gator stuff up right now. I had to change one of my kids' names. They're all named after Gator football players, and the basketball team is so underwhelming. I have to either that or I got to go on Maury. I might not be. Yeah, we might have to do a paternity test with some of the decision making. But anyway, give me a sleeper pick in the tournament right now. One team outside the top 10.
Sleeper pick outside of the top 10.
Yep.
That could, after what Duke did last night against Carolina.
Oh, but it's Carolina. Come on.
I know, but it's
can't have Duke as a sleeper. They're not a sleeper.
But Duke has lost like 5 or 6 games. They're not.
I know, but they're not a sleeper. Give me some. I'll give you mine. I'm going to go with Oregon. Not top 10. They have great guard play. They have great play at center. Their forwards and their guards can shoot from the outside. They've been super consistent playing in the Conference of Champions, as Bill Walton calls them. And like I said, it's a sleeper Cinderella pick. They're not going to be a number 1, 2, or 3 seed. I think that if I had to pick somebody outside the top 12, 15 range, I'd go with Oregon, and it's because of guard play. Guard play dominates the tournament every year.
Oh, okay. So we're going to do that. I would say, Virginia.
Okay.
Virginia. I mean, not.
I think they're a little too inconsistent, even though I love their coach. And they're playing in a down ACC this year.
But the thing about Virginia is even though it's a down ACC this year, the thing is, once you get into the tournament, Virginia slows the game down. You have to play at their pace. You're not going to go out and try to run and gun them because they're not going to let you do it. They're going to bring it in. It's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a game that you're going to have to fight tooth and nail, and that game is going to be a dogfight for whoever it is. No matter how high the seed is or how much talent you got, it's going to be a dogfight.
Let me interrupt you to do something that I haven't even had the opportunity to do on the show in a long time, which is give some credit and some positive feedback to your alma mater, Florida State, who clinched the ACC regular season title yesterday. And I think we have to start talking about possibly Leonard Hamilton being in the top 5 coaches for Coach of the Year this year. He's been there since 2003, which it doesn't seem like he's been there that long. Yeah. But, his record in that time is 360 wins and 227 losses. And I think this year kind of caps off his whole career there, winning their ACC regular season championship. I think that they're a team that can go deep, maybe Elite 8. But, again, it comes down to consistency. They've got to play consistent. And they've got to get good guard play. That's my call. But, I think that Florida State's had a tremendous year. What do you see for them heading into the tournament now?
Heading into the tournament, I mean, they're going to go as far as Trent Forrest leads them to go. I mean, Trent Forrest, senior forward for Florida State. So, really, it just depends on how far that he leads them. I mean, Trent Forrest, the last couple of years has had a down year due to injuries or whatnot. But this year he's come back. And he's been the heart and soul of that team. So if Leonard Hamilton, if they go deep into the tournament, it's definitely going to be as far as Trent Forrest takes them. And, I mean, the interesting stat about that is that's the first time Florida State has ever won the regular season title. They've won an ACC title, but they've never won a regular season title.
Well, good for them. I think that Leonard Hamilton has been a beacon of hope for them. And, I think the first 4 or 5 years when you look over his record, I remember him being there. I just didn't know it was that long. It was a lot of commitment to mediocrity. It took a long time to get that ship turned around, but I think he's got it turned around. I think they've had a great season. I think that they're definitely poised to go past the Sweet 16 once the tournament starts. Switching gears to the NBA, Steph Curry comes back and returns to Golden State. Not that that's going to help them at all, but it's good to see. We talked about exciting players out there, right? Zion Williamson and Luka Doncic being 2 of the most exciting young players that are out there. And I kind of put Steph Curry in that, even though he's not one of the new rookies or young players. He just brings a brand of excitement that even though Golden State is absolutely, a dumpster fire right now, I think that they're building for the future, and I love seeing him get back there. So congratulations to him to get back in the starting lineup. Lakers pick up veteran Dion Waiters, adding them to the lineup to make a run, hopefully for a championship or Western Conference championship at least. I don't know how much of a great move that is or a big move that is. He's averaging, I think, less than 10 points a game, but they just wanted to, I guess, bring in a veteran presence. But I don't know how far that's going to tip the meter. How about the Brooklyn Nets firing their head coach, Kenny Atkinson, who is got them with no Kevin Durant this year, a bipolar and often injured Kyrie.
Kyrie's out. So.
And so he's had nothing around them. They're still 7th. They're still in the playoffs, and they're 28-34, which for having nothing around you, I don't think is that bad. I don't know why they got rid of him at this point. And who are you going to bring in there? The first name that came off the top of my head was Mark Jackson. I've always liked him. I like him as a commentator, but I liked him as a player. And I think point guards make great coaches, just like in baseball. If I'm looking for a manager, I'm going to look at a catcher. I'm going to look at a catcher. So I think filling that position, the first question is, A, why did you get rid of him midseason? And why did you get rid of him when you're asking him to make chicken soup with hot water and no chicken? And I think Mark Jackson is a guy I would slip into that position in a heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, Mark Jackson to me will definitely bring that team toughness. I mean, because you look at Mark Jackson. I mean, really, you look at Golden State. You know, prior to the Kerr administration getting there, coaching staff getting there, it was Mark Jackson putting that heart, that toughness in the Golden State. The Golden State that you see now it basically started with Mark Jackson, and a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten about it, and I think he's the candidate that they should go after right now, but I also thought the Red Sox should pass on Ron Renicky and pick up Jason Varitek, so what do I know? But anyway, other even bigger NBA news, the NBA sends out a memo to all the teams saying that the opportunity or chances to play in empty arenas is getting stronger and stronger due to the coronavirus and global scare that it's put into our everyday life now. I mean, every news story I see, it's leading with the coronavirus. Teams must have contingency plans in place no later than Tuesday, March 10th for this event to happen. I think this is huge. The NBA went and met with the CDC, and they also met with representatives from the Trump cabinet talking about specifically what they can do proactively to combat transmission of the coronavirus. And we've already seen whole countries like Italy shut down all the sports to attendees. No attendees at any sports events. And we see whole cities in Italy being shut down and quarantined. This, to me, was huge. The fact that this is even on the table right now. And, of course, it's kind of disappointing because the next thing that came out after this news was LeBron had to chime in and say, well, I'm not going to play. Who the hell asked you, first of all? And why would you just not play? Everybody else has to play and keep the league going and make sure that the employees and the people that count on that income, they all have to show up and work, but you don't have to? What? I mean, am I out of my mind?
No, we're just going to use that as one of those, what do we call those
absent-minded comments that you don't think about before you say them?
No, we're going to use that as one of those rest days they call them now. One of those. Well, that's going to be one of LeBron's rest days. I'm not going to play if there's not going to be any fans in the stadium.
And if they're out for weeks, then what?
You're
talking about load management?
Load management. There we go.
Yeah, he's going to take the next month off because of load management?
Load management.
Isn't that kind of crappy?
Yeah, it's crappy, but I mean, hey, if he really wants people to actually be in the stands, hey, LeBron, how about you pay for everybody to have hazmat suits and everybody can come there and watch you play, man?
I've got a better suggestion than that. How about you realize that guys like me who work hard for a living, and a lot of other guys that work hard for a living, and people in this country that pay for the NBA ticket and NBA League Pass, don't do it to see Dion Waiters and Rajon Rondo bringing the ball up. We do it because you're a spectacular player, and that's why people pay a premium price to get those packages to see you. I'm not paying $150 a year to see Rajon Rondo bring up the ball, never shoot a three, and be in the twilight of his career after he's been with 15,000 teams, and this is just the final cup of coffee on the journey. I mean, why don't you think about that? I don't like being critical of people until they get crazy, but saying I'm just not going to play if there's not fans, I don't know. It kind of came off like egocentric much. I mean, that was like, help me to understand the mentality behind that. Why do you not play?
I guess
why are you going to rip off the fans?
I guess he's like, look, I play for the fans. If the fans aren't there, so what's use me playing?
I don't know. If you're playing for the fans, what, nobody watches at home?
I mean, hey, I mean, I
How many thousands of people are signed up for that NBA League Pass?
Thousands of people, but I play for the atmosphere. So
Well, then you're playing for me, right?
well, yeah, but I mean,
It's about me.
When you're playing basketball, you're definitely, especially when you come down to sports, you're looking at the atmosphere. The atmosphere hypes you up. The atmosphere is what really gets you going and get your blood pumping. Is the fans in the stands that are cheering for you. I mean,
The legacy you're building should hype you up. Your personal
but the-
self-character, which I'm not questioning with LeBron. I'm not questioning it with him. But your character is why you play. Those statistic lines every night is why you play. Rings and being the best that you possibly can is why you play. And I'm not saying he doesn't have that. He has that inner drive that not a lot of people have. Some guys, they come in the league and they're just there for a paycheck for 2 or 3 years. And I get that. I'm not saying that he doesn't have that in his character, but to make a comment, if there's no fans, I'm not playing. You could take that and roll it up, smash it in a bong, and get high on it all night long, LeBron, because I don't want any part of that. Moving on from the NBA, a subject that we absolutely don't think I've ever talked about in the first round. Premier League soccer, Manchester United gets it done today in a big win, 2-0 against Manchester City. They're still 12 points behind Manchester City in the standings and 37 behind Premier League leading Liverpool. It's just kind of the dawning of, if you want to call it the second day or a new day for Manchester United to get a big win against their in-city rival. I'm not a big soccer fan, but I was interested in that. And having said that, Chris, what else is going on in the world of sports?
Well, we have Barry Bonds talking about how Major League Baseball has broken his heart.
Here we go.
I mean, this guy says that Major League Baseball has given him a death sentence after he's retired from baseball.
I mean, all the creams he put on didn't give him a death sentence. Being convicted of misappropriation of justice, that didn't give him a death sentence. The steroid use, the Balco stuff, not signing autographs for fans, telling people that they can have post-game interviews at Pac Bell Park up in San Francisco after the games, and then sitting in his lounge chair that's made out of, $1,000 worth of fine wool Corinthian leather, and then not doing the interview. That didn't do anything. It's Major League Baseball is attacking him. He had nothing to do with it.
I mean, hey, that's what Barry said. Major League Baseball has basically turned their backs on him, and
all his anger management problems. That didn't have anything to do. He's in the wrong?
I mean, hey, nobody did it. I didn't do it. Major League Baseball did it.
Yeah, Major League Baseball. You know why we got cancer? Major League Baseball.
I mean,
you know why I got corona? Major League Baseball. You know why there's car accidents? Major League Baseball.
Exactly.
Your horse didn't win in the race? Major League Baseball did it.
Exactly. And it's just like, to me, it's like, Barry, you forgot you were a jerk your whole career. Guy.
Exactly. You married the prom queen, your high school sweetheart. 5 years later, you're divorced. Major League Baseball did it. They weren't entertaining enough. You got to blame Major League Baseball for anything. You got a toenail? Major League Baseball.
Hey, according to Barry.
It's the cleats they condone. I put on the cleats, I got a toenail infection. Major League Baseball's to blame.
I mean, yeah, but for the most part, Barry, you got to understand that you were a jerk just about your whole career.
Yep.
And, I mean, the fact that you cheated and
and
then quote unquote call yourself the home run king. I mean, to me, Hank Aaron is still that guy.
Yep.
So I mean,
amen for me on that one, Chris.
I mean, Barry, you did it to yourself, buddy. I mean, if you really want to come back into Major League Baseball first, show some contrition, and then then we can start talking and making bits.
What else is going on in the world of sports, Chris?
I mean, and then not to continue this whole coronavirus thing, but XFL vendor up in Seattle tested positive for the coronavirus. That is scary.
It is. We had the third death in Florida 2 days ago.
Jeez, that's crazy. But I mean, hey, you guys stay safe out there. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Be safe, man.
It's crazy, man. I mean, it's getting concerning. It's a whole nother thing. It doesn't have to do with sports. That music can mean only one thing. We're here to thank our support staff. The man on the board doing a cranking job as he always does, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. The man to my left, my awesome co-host, Chris Roberts. El Presidente, check 40. For all of us here in the St. Jude studios in the first round, I want to thank you for joining us here live. If you're not a subscriber, smash that subscribe button. Check out all of our over 50 archived videos. Hopefully you'll find them entertaining. Tell your friends about the first round. Help us grow to epic proportions. Over 500 subscribers in less than 3 months. We're doing awesome, and we're thankful that you're a part of it. We will hopefully be right back here on Wednesday. We've got a new set coming. We're going to be moving the show, so stay tuned for new details. Until then, take care of yourselves, everybody.